Good morning and welcome to Live from First Church. My name is Reverend Anna Bundy Hagler and I am one of the associate ministers here. I am so grateful that you are worshiping with us this morning. And if you are worshiping with us online, drop us a comment. We love comments. Do you have 3 favorite words?
I actually have 5 favorite words.
Oh, tell me.
3 of them are like, comment, and share. The other 2 I'm not going to tell you.
This is my co-host, Reverend Roy Atwood, also an associate minister here. Roy?
We're in a new place. New place, new digs. I miss my little sportscaster mic.
I know. I hear that we have something fun coming on the way.
We do have something fun coming. That's almost as exciting as the sportscaster mic.
Almost.
Yeah. What have we got going this morning?
Well, this morning, we've got a lot going on. First of all, I've heard that you've been on a tour asking people what their favorite parts of the mission statement is.
Yes.
But before we do that, I greeted our online guests that are currently worshiping with us. And if you haven't dropped a comment, this is your time to drop a comment right now, because now I'm just saying the same stuff.
Am I pointing down to the right place?
I think
we don't know. Maybe it's down here. Maybe it's up here.
If you are watching this video later, we're so grateful for you watching this video. Also, drop us a comment to let us know what you're up to that afternoon.
We're inclusive of people in the future.
We're like time travelers.
We're not inclusive of people in the past.
Okay, that's fair. So we're not actually time travelers.
Right, but we're
in the past.
You're getting way too deep.
Okay, we should probably just move on.
Yes.
So the mission statement, now that I threw it out there, our mission statement is to magnify God's love by creating spaces for purpose, belonging, justice, and joy.
Belonging, purpose, justice, and joy.
Yeah, I guess
I was really surprised that you got the first half, because I was looking for it on the paper and it's not there. You had it all up here until you tripped up right at the end.
I do a little bit of communications here.
Well, just a little bit. What's my favorite part? I like justice. Mm-hmm. You know, people having things that they deserve and human rights. Those are good things.
They're kind of important to you too. That's how you live your life.
Yes. I'm a very big advocate, particularly for affordable housing, because unless you've paid off your mortgage, the biggest expense for almost every person is what they spend on housing.
Right.
So the more affordable housing is, the more you can afford everything else in your life, right? Because it takes the biggest chunk out of your budget.
Yeah. I also love that you picked one of the 4 core functions. I know that people you've been interviewing have not.
They picked creating space, which is a great idea.
It's a great one.
Monica picked magnifying God's love. So smart.
Yeah, every time I rewatch you interviewing people and the way that they answer the question, I'm never sure. This is why I asked you the question. I'm never sure what my favorite part of the mission statement is.
I think it's changed.
Yeah, I think today mine is probably for all people, because Scott and Steve...
For all people? That's not even a part that I thought about.
Well, do you want to know my train of thought? Okay, so Scott and Steve...
No, I actually don't want to know.
Okay,
what if I just said no? No, I do want to know.
So Scott and Steve last week gave their testimony for why they're faithful members of First Church.
Yep.
And what I love, Scott, they've both been members here for a long time. Scott, I know, was a little bit longer, so he's coming up on 40 years. And he said multiple times that he believes we have more potential. And I admired that so much. So when I think of the for all people, it's like time traveling all over again. Not only were we for people past, not only are we for people present, but we're for people to
in
come.
The future. So we're putting an investment into the future.
Yeah. Scott Berry inspired me to say that.
Yeah. Speaking of investments in the future.
What is our current worship series right now?
Talking about Gravity, our stewardship drive, to get deep into some money stuff.
Some money stuff.
Yeah, that's how
I also love that you called it a stewardship drive, like we're collecting cans of money. I guess we technically could.
I typically will refer to it as a pledge drive, because when I was working at a church in New York City, it was a very liberal church, and the concept of stewardship or didn't always make sense to people, because a lot of them didn't grow up in the church.
Right.
But one thing they do know is a pledge drive, because they listen to NPR. So they've heard about pledge drives. They've heard about making a plan for giving. So if you call it a pledge drive, that really clicked for them.
Well, okay, that reminds me, so I married someone who did not grow up in the church. And I had to explain to him our first year together, like what a pledge is. So I'd just like to take a minute to like say what a pledge is, because we talk about pledging. And if you grew up in the church and you like tithe, you already know what tithing is. Tithing is committing to any amount of money
traditionally understood as 10% of your income, but that's not always feasible.
Yes, it's not. But a pledge then, so if that's our tithe, a pledge is telling the church what your expected tithe is for the upcoming year.
Yeah, so that way it helps a lot with budgeting. So if because a lot of times, you know, someone maybe has moved away or someone has passed away. And so you don't know, you know, how much, you can't just bank on what you got last year rolling over to this year.
Right.
And people have things come up in their lives. People have lost their jobs, or maybe they got a new job. At my old church, sometimes we would have someone was like, oh, I got a promotion. I'm going to increase my pledge. Or one of our highest donors wrote textbooks. And so, she wrote like child psychology textbooks.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, the next edition of my textbook just dropped. I can increase my pledge.
Right. Money really does have, there are some of us who have really consistent streams of money, but there's a lot of us who don't, right?
Yeah.
Like it ebbs and flows.
Yeah. If you just had someone, like you just had someone pass away in your family and you have an inheritance, you might decide to give more.
People who make commission-based salaries, like people who work hourly wage, it's based on the hours you work.
Or it could be in the other way, you retired or something, and so now you're on a fixed income, you can't afford to give as much as you can. So it's really helpful for the church in terms of budgeting to know just what people are planning on giving.
And even if you pledge to give $25 for the year, us knowing that that $25 is coming in is so important. Yeah.
And I don't know what I was going to say.
Man, I'm on the edge of my seat.
It was brilliant though.
Okay, well, now we're talking a lot about money, and we're in the church, and I feel really comfortable talking about money here. Did your family talk about money growing up?
That was a very interesting way.
What?
I just like the physicality of the question.
Yeah, why not move your body a little bit if you can?
We talked about money a bit. So my dad is a lawyer and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And we generally were like pretty comfortable with money. My dad worked a lot, and we were able to, that was part of how they showed love for us, was that they made things easy for us. So we'd always go, you know, on a family vacation and we'd never have to, well, can I, you know, order this at dinner or whatever. So we were always good like that. I do remember one time my dad was thinking about how much to pledge to the church. And I was like, well, take your income and move the decimal over 10%. And he was like, I know how much you should pledge. And he was like, would you like to go to college? If you would, it's not going to be 10%. Yeah. So it's interesting that we kind of had that discussion there. But since then, my dad's like, semi-retired, he's moving towards retirement, and he's not making as much because he's not working as much. Right, because he's trying to like transition his workload. And so we're having to like, the family's having to budget much more of like, oh, well, let's drive to this instead of flying. And it's really interesting of like, oh, we never talked about money that much when I was a kid, but now we're talking about it much more openly. So it's interesting. That is interesting. In my family, we didn't talk about money. We talked about like how much money my grandparents had, but like, we didn't talk about money other than that. I knew when like my parents did well, and I knew when they really didn't because of like what our lifestyle was like. So that's been a really interesting piece of like building my own family with my husband Kyler is like we've had to talk about like how we like to talk about money and how transparent we are with our money and that kind of thing. And you know what I really appreciate is that Mitchell is actually, this is your first stewardship campaign with us. With us, yes. Mitchell is very transparent the way that he talks about money. The last 2 years, he has told the congregation what he and his family will decide to pledge to be transparent with us about what their commitment is. And I really appreciate that this year, the ask is that each of us would consider the scriptural tithe of 10%. And if that doesn't work for you, which for a lot of families it might, and for other families it might not, to consider just going up a percentage in your tithing.
We actually put a giving guide in the study guide to like help people see what what even 1% of your income looks like.
Yeah.
So if you can move it from 3 to 4%, like we're so grateful.
Yes.
You know?
Another way to look is, so you can look at it that way of, I'm going to go from 3% of my income to 4% of my income. Yeah. Another way to look at it is just to do a percentage increase of what you did previously.
Yeah.
So we would always, in my last church, we'd always recommend that people go somewhere between a 3% and a 10% increase of what they did the previous year. So inflation roughly is about 4% over the last year in DFW. Yeah. So to cover our costs, as costs go up for us, if people would increase their giving by 4%, it's roughly about the same.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for this.
There are different ways to think about it.
Yeah, we're talking about money. You talk about money. I think what I want to talk about next is kind of a passion project of mine, which is the women's retreat.
Yep.
I want to take some time to invite you, women who are watching, to the fall women's retreat. We are having it November 22nd and 23rd at Texan Court Hotel in Irving, which is really Las Colinas. But it's so good. It's a Friday night and all day Saturday. We gather for deep connection, time of laughter and fellowship and talking and teaching. Reverend Monica Frazier will actually be our speaker this year. She's going to be teaching around the theme, Will You Be My Neighbor? If you have a red sweater, show up in it.
Yeah, she's very wise. I would listen to her teach anything.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I simply cannot wait. So grab a group of girlfriends. You can have a single hotel room. You can share a hotel room. But register by November 7th. It's going to be a really great weekend to be together, and I don't want you to miss it.
It's a great place to find belonging.
And purpose.
And you're going to be having a great time.
A great time. I love. Okay, we have other announcements. Let's go through those kind of quickly.
So the pastor's Bible study every Wednesday.
Grab your lunch, grab your Bible, meet us at the church at noon for to learn more about the week's upcoming texts. We also have a parent night out on October 11th. Bring your kids up to 6th grade, drop them off, pay for babysitting, and it's going to be
do whatever you want with your life.
Use some time for you.
Remember what you did before you had kids. Like actually enjoyed yourself, am I right?
You can tell we're not parents. We're dog parents.
Yes.
Another one is that we have a town hall meeting on October 13th after worship. Please register before. Please purchase your lunch before. It'll save you $5. If you register before the Wednesday before, I can't remember what that date is, it'll be $15 that Thursday to Sunday. It's first come, first serve, and $20 box lunch.
Okay, you've got Commitment Sunday on here. What's Commitment Sunday?
Commitment Sunday is October 20th, and it is the end of our stewardship campaign. We will be celebrating the work that God is doing, and we are encouraging all people to bring their pledges, physical on the pledge card, to worship, and we're going to have a time of prayer and discernment for us to really lay those on the altar and think about the next year. It's going to be really lovely. And then that afternoon, we have Fall Festival. Come in your costumes. I always dress up. Tyler and I love dressing up for it. Bring your kids, if you have kids. Yeah, in Halloween costumes.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's October 20th, though. It's kind of a bit out.
I'm not in charge of the calendar.
Oh. So it's like...
It's our Halloween celebration.
It's how it's going to happen. Just embrace it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we'd love to see you at all of those things and more. This has been our time today. Again, we are so grateful you are worshiping with us. We believe that God is really at work here at the corner of Ross and Harwood, both in person and online. We have a really beautiful online community. If you're watching this, you can also go to our YouTube channel after worship and see the podcast we have.
Yeah, we have a lot on there.
Our show, which is Studio 3A, and we drop those every Tuesday.
Mitchell and Elizabeth have a show, Howdy Theologian.
Yes. We also, First Church used to do a show in the 50s that was televised called The Pastor Calls, where our senior pastor at the time was answering real life questions. So that's a good nostalgic watch.
You can also, a lot of our, kind of the best way to keep up with us is Facebook.
Yeah.
Even though you might not be on Facebook, just get on Facebook just to follow us. You don't have to go to the news feed or whatever.
Yeah.
Just click right on over to First UMC Dallas and see what we're doing.
Why don't we go to worship together?
Should we?
Yeah, let's
Together?
go. Together.
With me? You really want to do that together?
Yeah.
I'm honored.